Okay, so I was interrupted on slide 22, which is a table 2 summary. Table 2 represents variables that are controlled by high-level managers. And what the authors found is that without top-level management commitment, all possible actions required to ensure success cannot be enforced. And in fact, not one project was successful that didn't have top-level commitment. And but they did find that, however, without top-level management commitment, with project top-level management commitment, some projects were still unsuccessful. So what were the slide 23? What were the low-level control variables? It was their reuse approach. Were the assets loosely coupled, or were they tightly coupled and were in fact reused in groups? What was the work products that were reused? Was it code, design, or requirements? Was a domain analysis performed? Slide 24. When were the or how were the assets developed? Were they developed re-engineered? Were they developed from scratch? And then was there an independent team working on reuse? And slide 25. When were the assets developed? Were they developed in advance or just in time? Were the assets tested or qualified? And was there any sort of qualification management or any sort of tracking of changes made to assets? Was there, as slide 26, was there a reward policy? And also, what were the number of assets that were in the repository? So slide 27, how is success defined? And this is an important one. What I was expecting was that the authors would define success based on what we would typically use in industry. You know, was the product delivered on time, below budget? Or did the customer buy the product being developed, and was the company actually able to make a profit from the product being developed? But the authors found that they didn't have enough available data to draw those types of conclusions. So they went with a little different focus, and that focus was, were the assets actually reused in the project? And did the people on the team actually enjoy reuse, and did they consider it a success? Did they feel that it added value? And then also, was the reuse program continued to be used after the completion of the project? Okay, so slide 28. So this is a summary of the data analysis. And what they found was not addressing two or more high-level variables contributed to failure. And of the state variables, only only one state variable was of interest. And many different low-level control variables could be used in a pattern for success. So they did find that there were certain types of variables in the low-level variables that were used typically together that were successful. Okay, slide 29. This is a subset of Table 2, which includes only projects that were interpreted as being a success. And as you can see, all of the projects had top-level management commitment. They addressed human factors and so on. And so there's not a lot of information that you can draw from this chart, other than to see that high-level control variables are very, very important for success of the project. So slide 30. So what the authors found is that introducing reuse processes and modifying non-reuse processes were important, and human factors must be recognized and managed. Okay, so slide 31. These are the projects that the authors established as failures, and you can see a few of them did not have top-level management commitment, and that likely contributed to their failure. And if you look at the chart, you can see rows I, J, T, and Y were those that didn't have top-level management commitment. And of those that were failures that did have top-level management commitment, some did not have reuse processes introduced, or the non-reuse processes were not modified to accommodate reuse. And you can see that those were rows D, E, and F. And so if we look at the overall the difference between the successful projects and the failed projects, you can see that we're generating a lot of useful information with these high-level control variables. And the other very important one is that you can see that almost all of the projects that failed did not address human factors. So slide 32. The authors found that the use of a repository and introducing key reuse roles was not enough to guarantee success. It was just too much of a low-hanging fruit and didn't do enough broadly within the organization to address success. But the authors did find that not addressing human factors was a killer for these projects. Okay, so slide 33. So what are these human factors that the authors are referring to? And you should be aware of these because human factors are actually the central point in agile development. And you can see that one of the important factors in using reuse is collaboration, and that this is has been indicated by the ASD method, and that's individuals must be motivated so they can work together in a manner which allows them to capture their synergy. And so also the 12th principle is appropriate here. At regular intervals, the team must get together and reflect on how to become more effective. So this is really getting at what the authors indicated is important for success. So another, slide 34, another important thing for success with human factors is you've got to build projects around motivated individuals. And that it's important to have awareness events. And you need to make sure that members of the team have attention to a competence, they have a common focus, they're collaborating, and that they have a decision-making ability. And so what we've learned in the course is that agile development uses attention to human factors to focus on the talents and skills of the individual. And this is really what this study really indicated, is that you need to have first the manifesto value 1, which is individuals and interactions over processes and tools. Okay, so slide 35. Now this isn't to say that processes aren't important, and what the authors found is that if you don't modify existing processes to look for opportunities to reuse, you're not going to do any reuse. And you need to have your existing processes, you need to understand, you need to modify those to create assets. And if no reuse process is introduced, you're not actively managing the quality of the reuse process, and you're going to fail there too. And the process is, it's very important to define the criteria for reuse and establish mechanisms to achieve and utilize reusable components. Slide 36. Okay, so human factors and process changes in the introduction cannot be effectively managed without high-level management commitment. And so that's really why the high-level management commitment is so important, is you can't do what you need to do to be successful. Okay, slide 37. Remember I mentioned that there was one important state variable, and this is based on the fact that some of the projects, a few of them, 4 of them were for isolated developments. Remember, these were where products were being developed from scratch, and the authors just felt that this was amplifying the fact that isolated development has less opportunities for reuse, and that with more data, they would find some isolated development environments that were successful. Okay, so slide 38. The state variable, this is the state variable table for all the projects, and you can see that only a few of the projects had an isolated environment. And remember, from here on, all of these shaded rows